Hey, Natalie, I think we're going to start. We're still waiting on Kevin and Randall, but Karen, Donna, and David are here.
Okay.
So whenever you're ready, we can start with the training.
Yeah, sounds good. Let me just share my screen real quick and make sure. And, oh, I'm disabled still for screen sharing.
All right. Mercedes is going to work on that in just a second.
And you know what I'm using for this presentation, so it's on kind of light plans and how to review light plans and the impact of lighting on the community. But I am taking this presentation from one that was provided for Dutchess County Planning Federation. So all the materials I'm going to share, and there's a really nice write-up on it. I can work with Mercedes to kind of send that out to the board. So even if they don't get to see the whole training, the info will be shared.
Thanks, Natalie. She said you should try it again. She just clicked something else that should enable you to share. There you go. You can see it.
And then if I do, I just want to do green. So you guys are seeing that. So like I said, we're going to go over kind of lighting and how to review lighting. And I wanted to do this because a few of my planning comment letters for applications before the board tonight talk about this. So I thought it was just a good idea to remind folks why we focus on what can feel like sometimes like little nitpicky details in a lighting plan and what impact that has. So like I said, this is coming from a Dutchess County Planning Federation does training sessions. They do a few every year. They're really good. And this was one, so I just want to give credit to Michelle Gregg, Brandy Nelson, and Sarah Brown, who actually did this presentation. And I was an attendee of one of these, and I just thought they did an amazing job. So there was no need for me to recreate this presentation. I just want to give them credit and use their use their work that they already put into this. So again, why we're talking about lighting or why lighting's even in the code and why we're looking at that with site plans is it has a huge impact on kind of the character of the community and the mood you can get when you're walking on public spaces, including streets, parking lots, and on sites. So when we're considering individual site plans. Why I love this presentation is I think they just do a really good job with imagery, right, to really show what we're talking about here. And so, you know, comparative images of the different feel you can feel when there is glaring kind of highlights or more ambient kind of low lighting. And then safety, I love this slide. You know, I think we often talk about lighting as lighting a space for safety as well as aesthetics and feel, and that's obviously one of the main functions of site lighting. You know, so on the left you have lighting on stairwells, which is essential and necessary. But why I like this picture on the right is not all lighting achieves what it sets out to do, right? So that light was put there for safety, but you can see because of the glare of the photo on the right, there's two, it's the same image. One is with the light, with the glare full blast, and the picture further to the right showing what that glare is hiding. So it's actually creating darker spaces on a site that lead to unsafe conditions. So while this light may have been placed there for safety, it's actually having an opposite effect on that. And so that's why we're looking at things like glare, cutoff, and lighting levels when looking at a site plan. Kind of the global picture, right? We've seen an increase of light pollution. I'll skip through these kind of really quickly. The Bortle scale is like how the brightness of the sky, right? And that is largely impacted by the level of light pollution. And we've just seen an increase in that over the last half century, obviously with, you know, I think just increase in lighting in urban areas, but also the type of lighting and not controlling lighting. So here's a light pollution map of Dutchess County. Beacon is with the red pin on it. So as you would expect, urban areas have more light pollution. But I think what we'll talk about here today is that you can control that to impact that negative effect on the environment. Here's just, so when we're talking about sky glow, that is what we're talking about with light pollution, and that is like the collective, kind of the collective light pollution from various sites within an urban center. And then we're gonna zero down on how each individual site impacts that overall light pollution of a community. So light trespass, I mean, there's a few different things when you're talking about lighting or the negative effects of lighting. So one we talked about is the sky glow, light pollution. Light trespass is kind of unwanted light escaping from one property onto another. And we'll talk about that specifically as we go through this. There's also over illumination, which happens quite a bit where lighting is redundant, especially in urban areas when you have sites close together. And I think something we'll talk about is often on a site plan, you're only looking at that individual site and the lighting there. That's what that applicant is responsible for showing you. But as a planning board, I think site visits are essential because you need to actually see in real life how the sites next to it are also impacting, right? Because the photometric scale that's provided by an applicant is only going to show the lights that they are producing on site or proposing on site. It doesn't show what already exists in the environment. So that one's kind of over illumination, and then light clutter is like redundant lighting, which we also get a lot in urban areas. And then here's just some really good images in terms of how lighting can impact a site. So we have, glare, which we talked about with one of the previous pictures, that actually can reduce visibility and often annoys neighbors. And then this little quote that I love from the presentation is just, it seems like a small little thing, but actually we can impact, lighting does have a big effect on the character of the community, character of a site, and there's really small changes that are very easy to do to fix these issues, right? So this is actually a very solvable issue, light pollution, that we can work on, that the planning board can work on with with property owners and the community. So, in general, I think this is what we're thinking about when we're thinking about lighting on a site, right? That it should only be on when it's needed. So what are the timers or dimmers that are in effect on a site? When does the light need to be on? It's only lighting the areas that need to be lit. We're least amount of light possible, right? Enough for safety, but not over lighting a site. We'll talk about light temperature and blue light emissions and that effect it can have on the aesthetics of a site, and then shielding, which we'll talk about a lot because your code talks about that. So here's real quick, there's a lot of text here. This is the section of the code, the Beacon zoning code, that talks about lighting. And why I just wanted to highlight this is what's in yellow is kind of specific aspects that the planning board should be thinking about when looking at the presented lighting plans. So the first two, 1 and 2, are kind of, I think, general qualitative aspects, right? Light should not spill over the site in general, and then having full cutoff fixtures. But in 3 is where we get into some specific qualitative restrictions or regulations, regulations that City of Beacon has in place. So the code regulates how tall the poles can be. It regulates the average foot candle across the site. It regulates the color temperature of LED lightings, and that's Kelvin, and we'll kind of dive into all of these individually. And then it also regulates the color rendering index, which just means how true the light produced on site, how true does that render colors to what they actually are. So here's cutoff, and I think, going back to Beacon code, full cutoff fixtures are required. We have a shall in the code, right? So this is absolutely required. So a lot of my comments, I think, is it's upon the applicants to there's a million different fixtures. You could have the same kind of light style, right? It could be a pole light, but you can have various cutoff styles. So it's really important that we know that the applicant is dictating on their site plan that they will have full cutoff, because that is a requirement of the code. And that's clearly indicated on the photometric plan or on the lighting plan. And this just talks about what cutoff's doing. And cutoff is, regulating how far light is going up, right? So non-cutoff is glare or light is going all around the light fixture, and straightforward. So I think the City of Beacon requires full cutoff, so it cannot go above the horizontal plane of the light fixture. And then here's just some imagery of what that looks like on sites, right? So if you have an unshielded light fixture on the left, that amount of glare and uplighting you're getting versus full cutoff fixtures in the picture on the right. And this can also happen with wall-mounted lights, right? So it's not just pole fixtures. It's lighting mounted on the buildings itself. So even though someone says we're going to propose a wall-mounted wall pack, it's, the planning board should be looking at what is the shielding of that wall pack. And then again, like where the lens is hanging in terms of these lighting fixtures. So you can just see what the lighting on the right-hand side is recessed into the ceiling, and the impact that has on glare on surrounding sites, right? That site is still fully lit on the right-hand side where it needs to be lit, but you're not getting this glare into the public right-of-way and adjacent properties. And then again, I think this slide is talking a little bit about using light only when it's needed, right? So when can some of the lights be turned off? When can they be dimmed? Both to, be a good neighbor if there are residential properties around, but also just to save on energy. So we'll talk about LEDs for a minute, because I think most of the lighting plans we look at these days, LEDs are proposed, and here's some of the reasons why: energy efficient, longer life, and cost effective. So LEDs have gone up in popularity. It's most of the lighting that we see now on lighting plans, both internal and external. And I think there's a lot more control that you have with LED lights, but it's also some new terminology that folks that might not be, second nature to most folks. So I think one of the biggest things about LEDs is the light temperature. So in your code, I believe you allow from 2,500 to 4,000 Kelvin. And so this is kind of just showing you what that looks like. So the higher you get in Kelvin, so it's generally recommended that lighting LED lights, unless you're in a high security environment, do not need to be over 3,000 Kelvin, right? That's still kind of a nice light, but it's not this really stark blue light that can be disruptive to nature, to the natural environment, but also just create a kind of a cold feeling of a site that makes it feel a little bit more institutional and less inviting. So this comes into aesthetics and community character as well. Bug rating, I'm not going to go into. This is kind of a new rating system for lights, and it basically just has to, bug is backlight, uplight, and glare. And so these are rated on a scale of 0 to 5, and light manufacturers will often now give a bug rating to a light. I could do a whole probably presentation on this, and I'm still learning exactly all this. So I just wanted to make the board aware that this is a lighting standard that is out there, and kind of how you would use it, right, is they have different bug ratings that are appropriate for different lighting zones. And lighting zones this is kind of an assigned value created by the Illumination Engineering Society, IES, which creates a lot of the lighting kind of regulations and standards and best practices. So they created lighting zones for whether you're in a super urban environment or a rural environment, and bug ratings kind of correlate with that and what bug ratings are appropriate. I think the general thing you need to know is the lower the bug rating, the better. The lower the bug rating means that light is going where it's supposed to be going, and there's not kind of over illumination. There's different units of lighting measurement. So lux, lumen, and foot candle all measure lighting in kind of a different format. I think we'll focus on foot candle because that is what the beacon code focuses on, right? That there should be an average foot candle an average of 1 foot candle lighting for sites. So I think that's what we'll focus on. And this is just a unit of measurement. This is a unit of light kind of expressed on the ground. So when you're looking at the photometric plan, which I think I'll have that in another slide, when you're seeing these little numbers kind of dotted all around the plan, those numbers often relate to foot candle. And then the foot candle, here's just some more terminology, in terms of when we're talking about lighting, especially pole lighting, that's important, is the lighting fixture or the luminaire, which is at the top of the light, the pole, and the base. So I think this often comes into aesthetic conversations in terms of what do we want the pole color to be, the base color to be, are they matching, are they design, are they design oriented, or are they more industrial looking? So I think those are just some terminologies. And I think the thing I want to take away from this is the mounting height and the pole dictate, of a pole light dictate the foot candle. So you can often change, maybe that comes up here actually in this slide. So the light distribution, especially for pole lights, is related to the pole, the spacing of poles, as well as the mounting height of the poles. So there's different things. If you're getting, hot spots on a lighting plan, there's different things that the lighting designer for that project can do with pole heights and the luminaire to change those levels that you're hitting on the ground. So I think that's my quick overview of lighting. I think there could be future ones where we go in deeper and kind of go through lighting plans and more specifics, but I think that I just wanted to give everybody general terminology that we can all use when reviewing photometric plans. So I think we maybe have a few minutes left. I'm happy to take questions or can take a break before the official meeting starts.
Thank you. Anybody have questions? Good. So we'll just take a few minutes, take a break before we start. Thank you.